Today's November 3rd, 2017. And John, it's Friday afternoon, and boy, a whole lot of stuff going on in Bitcoin world. It's over $7,300.
God, what does it take? 41 shares of Apple to equal one Bitcoin or whatever, Andrew. But the good news is it takes fewer shares today because even though Bitcoin's up, Apple's up a lot too.
I know.
So I think I did it in Vertcoin and in Litecoin and even in Ripple, various measures of how much it would take of each of those coins to, in some cases, buy Apple, and in other cases, comparing them to Bitcoin.
Two different worlds, man.
Cryptocurrency world. Yeah, it's a crazy world.
It's like taking off on a SpaceX rocket to Mars and then arriving at Mars and say, yes, we have our own trading system here. A lot of action coming from Asia. Since it's banned in China, they're getting their friends in Japan to bid up the price in Korea and Japan. So they're paying like $200-$300 paying a premium.
Yeah, to give people an idea how that works, for instance, it's the same way it works when Chinese investors want to buy a penthouse in New York or just an apartment in New York. Basically, it's the strangest thing, Andrew, but I know because I know a lot of Chinese families. And what they do is a Chinese family stands on the street of Beijing or somewhere else, or probably in an apartment, and they hand over a certain amount of the Chinese currency, the yuan, and they hand that over to this intermediary. The intermediary is on a cell phone, confirms in New York the transfer of dollars to whoever the person that's supposed to be receiving the cash in New York, and that's how they move money. So you can understand why they would love to be able to use Bitcoin, because obviously the middlemen all take their fees just like Jamie Dimon does when JP Morgan is the middleman. It's how you have to do it. You can only take, it's like $50,000 at a time you can take out of China. If you need to get your kid money for an apartment in New York, they have that two-person meeting in China, and then they call the guy in Chinatown, New York, and they make the exchange. It is crazy. But you can kind of see how that works.
No, that makes even more sense. It's just another one of the customers. Speaking of customers, Coinbase, which is one of the places where I've bought Bitcoin before in the past and have some.
We both have. Yep.
Yes. They
congratulations, by the way, Coinbase, right, Andrew?
They just confirmed 100,000 new users. Because that's not Facebook kind of, signups, but
yeah. Well, if you have 100,000 new accounts with any enterprise where they're actively trading, like option traders, you'd be putting on $500 to $600 million fresh value. When you're talking about Coinbase, and you're talking about adding those kinds of numbers, that is astonishing. And yet it does point to, I think, Andrew, the millennials that have embraced this and how willing they are to explore new things rather than just say, oh, yeah, I'm going to trade Apple or Facebook or whatever else. Sure, they're going to do some of that, but they're really going to take a look at, the cryptos, and that's why ICOs and cryptos have taken off.
You know what it's like? It's like all the millennials and all these disenfranchised young kids have just gotten on a SpaceX rocket, shot themselves off to a new planet, and started trading their own world. They're like, nah, we don't want them. And buying into Apple, it's too expensive. I'm going to do this cryptocurrency. That's my 2 cents.
Plus, they don't want to buy into these that don't move. I mean,
that's true. There's the volatility. Look at volatility. Volatility's
right.
Shit.
Big day in Apple is like a 4 or 5% move. I mean, when you're talking about big days in whether it's Bitcoin or other cryptos, they can see 20 and 30% moves. Now, that cuts both ways, of course, if you're on the wrong side. But that is the sizzle that sells the steak, as they say.
Well, okay. Until they colonize Mars. Oh, speaking before we get off this subject. You and I are going to Europe at the end of the month for a conference because this is even hotter in Europe than it is in America.
Exactly.
It's like soccer.
Oh, much more.
It's like football.
Yep. Much more so.
Soccer.
It's huge. So we're going to be going over to London you and I will go back to London for the Monaco Growth Forums. You can look up their website, Monaco Growth Forums.
I'll put in the links.
You and I are then going to go over to Geneva. We'll speak. We'll interview a whole bunch of cryptos and some ICOs. I just did 5 of those interviews yesterday, and I think there's a lot more of that to come. This is far more embraced, as you say, Andrew, over in Europe than it is here.
It's like soccer.
And we're looking forward to it.
What are we doing? I sold. The only trade I did today is I punted Comcast, and as much as I hated to do it, I didn't hate to do it. I feel like there's something going on there that I can't really put a finger on. And our friend Permastar, the guy that sends us charts, because a lot of people send us charts.
Permabear UK or whatever.
Yeah. He sent a chart. And he's like, yeah, it's going to go down to 20. I don't know if it is or not. I just think, it just feels like a train wreck coming. Of course, once I sold it, it went up. But I think there might be something more under the surface at Comcast, and I can't put my finger on it. So that's the only trade that I did today. And then, of course, I still own Apple stock, which, as you know,
we're both happy about.
Yeah.
Tell me we didn't nail that one, Andrew. I mean, I can tell you, from time to time, of course, we have great trades. And I'd like to say that we have a pretty consistent upside bias to our portfolios in terms of, the numbers are moving up each day. But Apple, when it filled that gap that I talked about, August 1st to August 2nd, that gap, 149 to 160 or whatever it was, oh my gosh, have we nailed that one? Because you bought it on that dip, because it gave you that a month ago, and now it's 174.
I know. Well, I own the stock, so I don't have to think about the options around it, which isn't a bad thing. And you had some other picks, though, on the show. What else did you do?
Let's see. We did Anadarko APC today, and also did a little puts in AIG, mainly because, boy, their return on equity, return on capital is bad now. Because of the storms and everything else that AIG is exposed to, they went from a positive 7% return on equity to a negative 8.4%. That's scary. That's enough to get you to the sidelines for a bit. And I think it's got to retest maybe 58 or lower on this move.
It's a Friday afternoon. You're headed to the airport as usual. You got anything planned for this weekend?
Heading down to New Orleans. Going down to see my daughter. It's parents' weekend down in New Orleans. So I'll be enjoying some. I'll send you some videos from there, Andrew.
What's that going to cost you? She's not going to like, Dad, will you buy me some Bitcoin?
Nothing that expensive, thank God.
You can pay. Daughter, I'll give you
just the tuition. Maybe I should have bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin
at
the beginning of the school year when it was 5,000, and I could cash in some today at 7,400.
Hey, eventually there will be a school that will take a cryptocurrency. I'm surprised that
Sure there will.
It's only a matter of time before this happens. All right, well then have a good weekend, and
thank you.
We'll pick this up on Monday.
All right, remember folks, you can subscribe to Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, you name it, and have a great weekend.